In the sacred forest of ancient India, under the watchful guidance of Vyasa, the great sage of the Mahabharata, many disciples sought wisdom and enlightenment. Among them was Jaimini, a bright and confident student who prided himself on his discipline and mastery over his senses. One day, during a lesson on controlling desires, Vyasa spoke to his disciples. "Desires are like shadows," he said. "They follow you, waiting for the right moment to engulf you. Wisdom is not about denying them, but about mastering them." Jaimini, his pride unshaken, stood and said, "Guruji, I have conquered desire. No beauty, no temptation can sway me." Vyasa, sensing his arrogance, replied with a calm smile, "Jaimini, words are easy, but actions reveal the truth. Would you prove your mastery?" Jaimini, eager to show his strength, agreed. "I am ready for any test, Guruji." The next day, Vyasa sent Jaimini on an errand. "Take this sacred staff to Sage Kanva's hermitage deep in the forest," he said. "But remember, the journey itself is a test." Jaimini bowed, confident that no temptation could break his resolve. He set off into the forest, where the air was thick with the scent of flowers and the songs of birds. The deeper he went, the more the forest seemed alive, vibrant, almost enchanted. But as the sun began to set, the atmosphere changed. The air grew warm, and a faint melody, sweet and alluring, seemed to float around him. Suddenly, Jaimini saw a small hut in a clearing. Standing by its doorway was a maiden of otherworldly beauty. Her eyes sparkled like stars, and her smile was soft yet beguiling. She stepped forward, her anklets jingling with each graceful movement. "Welcome, noble sage," she said, her voice like honey. "What brings you to this part of the forest?" Jaimini tried to steady his thoughts. "I am delivering a staff to Sage Kanva," he replied, avoiding her gaze. The maiden laughed softly. "The forest is vast, noble one. A few moments of rest won't delay your journey. Come, sit with me." Jaimini hesitated. Her beauty was intoxicating, and her voice seemed to pull at his very soul. "I cannot," he said firmly, but his feet betrayed him, rooted to the spot. The maiden stepped closer. "Why deny yourself the joy of company?" she whispered. "Surely, a wise sage like you isn't afraid of a simple maiden?" Her words struck a chord in Jaimini's heart. Pride and desire, two forces he thought he had mastered, began to stir within him. I must leave," he stammered, turning away. But her laughter echoed behind him, and he stopped. When he turned back, the maiden had disappeared into the hut. Her absence ignited something wild within him. He felt an uncontrollable urge to see her again. Overcome by his desire, Jaimini climbed onto the hut's roof, peering inside through a small opening. There she was, her beauty even more radiant in the soft glow of the firelight. Unable to control himself, Jaimini jumped through the thatched roof into the hut. The maiden gasped, startled by his sudden appearance. But she didn't resist. Instead, she smiled faintly, drawing him closer. Jaimini, blinded by his desire, lifted her in his arms, ready to carry her away. As he stepped outside the hut with the maiden in his arms, something strange began to happen. A sudden darkness fell over the forest, and a chilling wind swept through the clearing. Jaimini felt a weight pressing down on him, as if the maiden's radiance was turning into a heavy shadow. He looked at her face, but it was no longer soft and inviting. It had become cold, expressionless, almost lifeless. Confused and alarmed, Jaimini turned toward the forest path, but he stopped when he caught a reflection of himself in a nearby stream. His face, his once proud, radiant face, was blackened, smeared with ash and dirt. His appearance was disheveled, his dignity shattered. Before he could understand what was happening, the maiden dissolved into thin air. In her place stood Vyasa, his eyes calm yet stern. "Guruji!" Jaimini exclaimed, dropping to his knees, the weight of his shame overwhelming him. This was all you're doing?" Vyasa nodded. "Yes, Jaimini. You claim to have mastered desire, but even a moment in its presence revealed the truth. Desire does not disappear simply because you declare it conquered. It lies within all of us, waiting to emerge. Jaimini, his pride shattered, wept openly. I was blinded, Guruji. I thought I was strong, but in her presence, I became weak. I have failed you and myself. Vyasa placed a hand on Jaimini's shoulder, his voice steady and compassionate. No, my child, you have not failed, for failure only comes when we refuse to learn. This experience was not to humiliate you, but to teach you that mastery over desire is a lifelong journey. True wisdom is not in denying your humanity, but in learning to control it. Jaimini bowed deeply, his heart heavy, but his mind clearer. I understand now, Guruji. Forgive my arrogance. I will carry this lesson with me for the rest of my life. Vyasa smiled faintly. Remember, Jaimini, the greatest victory is the one over your own self. Let this mark not be a stain of shame, but a reminder of the strength you can cultivate through humility and self-awareness. The tale of Vyasa and Jaimini reminds us that no one is immune to the pull of desire. It is a force that tests the strongest minds, often in ways we least expect. But as Vyasa taught, the key lies not in denying its existence, but in mastering it with discipline and humility. Jaimini's journey is a lesson for all of us, that our humanity is not a weakness, but an opportunity to grow stronger.